We are down to our final 30 of the top 100 players for fantasy football in the year 2000 and beyond. Really excited to get to this group. This is a fun group of players that had a few things gone a little differently. We might be seeing these guys inside of the top 10. Fantastic group of players. Let's look in. Let's start with the guy that's been so good for so many years, and he's still producing for the New Orleans Saints right now, and that's Mr. Alvin Kamara. Kamara, man, he's been pretty freaking good. When you look at his career, he has been a running back one for 6 seasons. In 7 straight seasons, he's been a 1 or a 2. He had that injury in 2022. Or actually, it wasn't even an injury, it was a suspension, but he missed some time in 2022, so he started off the year a little bit late. Had he been playing the full season, or at least most of it, we would have had him as another RB1 season, but still, as it stands, 6 RB1 seasons, a 7th season that was a running back 2 year, and of course, he did hit that elusive top overall running back in 2020. He was a top 3 guy in 2017. Alvin Kamara, just absolute stud over his career. It doesn't matter if it was running the football, catching the football, or if he ruined your Christmas during the fantasy football playoffs when he put up 6 tutties. Yeah, I remember that. It hurt. Anyway, Calvin Kamara, absolute stud, comes in here at 30. Next up is a name that I didn't expect to see this high, but when I went through the numbers, man, Tiki Barber was awesome. When we go from 2000 through 2006, he was a running back one every single year. That's 7 straight seasons where he was a running back one. And he had 4 of those seasons, he was a top 6 back. And in 2004, he was the number 1 overall fantasy football running back. Wow. Just what he did with this team was truly incredible. Now, for some reason, this guy still is not considered a Hall of Famer. We'll have to see as things play on. But when you see all of those amazing seasons in a row, when you look at his numbers, he started off his career a little bit slow. But, man, it doesn't really matter for our sake because that was all during the 90s. From 2000 and on, he was a really, really good fantasy football running back, and he deserves this spot. Even if the name recognition might not be there as high as some of the other players, he deserves to be here inside the top 30. The Cheetah. That's right. Tyreek Hill comes in here at 28, and we know that he's still got some juice left. But Tyreek Hill, he has already had 6 wide receiver 1 seasons. He has had 4 seasons inside the top 3, not the top 6, 4 seasons inside the top 3. Absolute absurd numbers for a guy that is still playing and is still one of the fastest players in the league. It doesn't matter if he was with the Kansas City Chiefs. It doesn't matter if he was with the Miami Dolphins. He's putting up numbers, and he only had 1 season where he was not a wide receiver 1. And I didn't even bother saying 2 because he was always just a wide receiver 1 basically every year. But he only had 1 season after his good run there where he wasn't one of those top guys, and it was due to being a little banged up and a little injured. Other than that, Tyreek Hill has been an absolute freak of nature. And 28, man, it still doesn't even seem high enough. Like, I feel like it should be higher, but it probably will be in a couple of years. All right, here we go. Number 27, it's Torrey Holt. That's right, Torrey Holt, part of the greatest show on turf. Yes, he was there with Isaac Bruce, but Torrey Holt in these 2000s years was just an absolute monster. 8 straight. I still have a hard time believing this. 8 straight wide receiver 1 seasons for Torrey Holt. Like, that's completely unreal. From the year 2000 through 2007, wide receiver 1 each and every single year. Now, I never hit the number 1 overall guy, but he did have a season where he was top 3, and he had 3 seasons where he was top 6. So just a guy that produced. Like, close your eyes, plug him into your lineup, and you know that it's just going to happen. By hook or by crook, he's going to get one of those top numbers for you. So fantastic career. And for Torrey Holt, this top 30 ranking, more than deserved. We have an assault at the wide receiver position. That's right. We're going to have 5 straight guys. We've already covered 2. We've got 3 more, including this guy, and it's Brandon Marshall. Brandon Marshall, he had 7. That's right, 7 wide receiver 1 seasons. But when he was a wide receiver 1, he did it right. He had 2 inside the top 3. He had 2 more inside the top 6. And he even threw in an extra season where he wasn't a wide receiver 1, but he was a wide receiver 2. So he was just really, really good. Another guy that played on multiple teams, but it didn't really matter where he lined up, where he played. And he wasn't a high draft capital guy either. It wasn't somebody that was drafted super high, but man, just absolutely broke out when he played with the Bears, when he played with the Broncos, just made big time plays as that physical X type of wide receiver. Brandon Marshall, a guy that's doing stuff in the media now, great dude, but ultimately, let's not forget, he was a great fantasy football wide receiver. 25, we have Andre Johnson. Now, he's ahead of some of these other receivers, and at first it's going to sound like maybe he shouldn't be, but it's because he only has 5 wide receiver 1 seasons. We're talking about guys with 7 and 8. But here's the difference. Those guys never had a wide receiver 1 overall year. Andre Johnson had 2 of them in back-to-back seasons. So Andre Johnson was just really freaking good for a really long time. Then you add into the fact that he also added in 2 wide receiver 2 seasons where the other guys either didn't have any or only 1. So I had Andre Johnson because of those wide receiver 1 years just a tad ahead. Look, you could kind of mix those guys up in whatever order you want to. They were all really good wide receivers. And so is this next one. Number 24, Julio Jones. That's right. I thought he might have been a little higher on the list, but man, 7 wide receiver 1 seasons for Julio Jones. The guy was just so good. The only time he didn't produce was a year that he was a little banged up, but just consistent week in, week out. Had a wide receiver 2 season as well. Had 2 top 3 and then 3 additional top 6 seasons. So 5 of those 7 wide receiver 1 seasons were top 6. So when he was putting up numbers, he was putting up elite numbers. And the defense knew where the ball was going. Matt Ryan was looking for him. He got tons of targets. The only thing that held Julio Jones back is never had tons of touchdowns in his career. For a guy that was as big and as strong as Julio Jones, you'd think he would have had more touchdowns, but he always kind of struggled in the touchdown department, but more than made up for it with yards and receptions. So Julio Jones inside of our top 25 here at 24. We have a super young gun right here at 23. So many years left for this guy to add to these numbers. He's already number 23, Josh Allen. Yes, Josh Allen for fantasy football, especially if you play in Superflex leagues. He has been unreal. His first season, his rookie year in 2018, didn't do anything. 2019, he was a quarterback 1. Then he was the quarterback 1, the quarterback 1, the quarterback 2, the quarterback 1. Just an absolute unreal run. And even when the one season in 2019 where I said he was a quarterback 1, he was a top 6 guy that season too. So with what he does on the ground and what he does through the air, the numbers that Josh Allen has been putting up over the past 5 seasons, people just aren't touching. Just unreal fantasy football production. And yes, Pat Mahomes is great. And I think Pat Mahomes is a better real life quarterback. But when you talk about fantasy football, Josh Allen has a chance to look at some of the GOATs of all time and look them right in the eye. Now, there's one guy that he's going to have a hard time keeping up with, but if he keeps putting up these numbers, he just might do it. At 22, we have another quarterback. It's Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson from 2012 through 2020, quarterback 1 each and every single year. Now that he's in Denver, things haven't gone quite as good. And now, I shouldn't say now that he's in Denver because now he's in Pittsburgh and things didn't go super great there. Well, I'm just projecting. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll go great. But either way, really good run with the Seattle Seahawks. Quarterback 1 overall in 2017. Top 3 quarterback in both 2014 and 2015. 2020, he was a top 6 guy. And then he was a quarterback 1 in 2018, 2016, 2013, and 2012. The guy just consistently put up numbers for Seattle. He's only going to see himself fall more than likely, unless I'm wrong. And he does better with his time in Pittsburgh than I think he's going to. But either way, great run for Russell Wilson. Last one here. Let's get in a tight end. We haven't talked about as many tight ends, only 2 so far inside of the top 50, actually even inside of the top 60. We've only talked about 2. Let's get another one in here. Jason Witten, hard-hitting Jason Witten. Look at this guy. 2 times he was the tight end 1 overall, both in 2007 and in 2010. He then also was a top 3 guy in 2004, 2008, and 2012. So if you're counting at home, that means he had 2 seasons as tight end 1, 3 additional seasons as either tight end 2 or 3. And then as far as times being an overall top 6 tight end, we're looking at 8 top 6 seasons for this guy. Like, unreal run, unreal production. A lot of great stuff. He paired up with Tony Romo for most of it. Those two were pretty inseparable over their career. But Jason Witten, didn't matter what he was doing, he was productive. Guy that played really late into his career, but it was really that 2004 through 2013 run. That was when he was just basically untouchable. Well, guys, we're now into the top 20. I can't wait to talk about the top 20 players. Who do you think is going to be there at the top? Who's going to be the ones that we're talking about, the top 5, top guy at each position? Who's going to be the top tight end? There's a few names that we still haven't discussed. And obviously, we're going to get to them very soon. So tune in tomorrow when we get from 20 through 11. We'll see you then.